right now. Before we get to the presentation, I just want to say welcome to the start of our 2021 Summer Nature Talk series. This is the first talk, but we'll be having them every Thursday from here through the end of August at 7 p.m. You can find a list of these talks in our e-newsletter, on our Facebook page, and on our website as well. So if you're interested in learning more about the future talks, please do check one of those locations. So my name is Caroline Hughes. I'm a biologist at the Loon Preservation Committee. We are a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1975 in response to a really dramatic and noticeable decline in New Hampshire's loon population. And so since then, we've been working to bring back the loon population through a host of different activities, including monitoring, management, research, and education. And so these summer nature talks really fit into that education aspect of our work. And so tonight we're so happy to have our Loon Cam operator, Bill Gassman, with us. Bill has been helping us out with the Loon Cam since 2015, Bill? 2016? Oh, I've got you muted, I think.
Yeah, you're number 6.
Yeah, so this is Bill's 6th year with us. Since he started, the Loon Cam has improved drastically, I'd say. We owe a lot of its success to him and to all of the hours that he puts into making it as good as it can be for all of the viewers. So thank you, Bill, and I'll turn things over to you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. I'm going to share my screen here. And yeah, again, this is the Loon Cam for those that just started. This is Loon Cam 2. Loon Cam 1 finished a week or so ago. There's some wood ducks we got on here. But while I'm letting that run, I'm going to start up the presentation. And so tonight's discussion is on Loon Cam, the Loon Nest Cam through the lens. We're going to talk about what happened this year and a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. So I guess the first thing is to thank Caroline and the LPC. It's been a real privilege to be the Loon Cam operator for the last 6 years. It's I get to see lots of loons. I've got a technical background with both computer and networking, so I get to play with the technologies, and it's just a good fun. I also have a hobbyist with photography, and so it combines a lot of those attributes and keeps old retired guys something to do during the spring. And LPC is boy, they're tough on me when it comes to quality. It's everything has to be the best quality. Harry, the executive director of LPC, I can't tell you how many times he said, nope, not good enough. And so we have to make it better. And over the last 6 years, we've done a lot of things that have made it quite a bit better. So tonight, we're going to try a few new things. First, I guess, as I change this slide, the dramatic change between the beginning of May when we put the camera in. This is the first day of the camera. And then the June 20th, first day of summer, the difference in vegetation is just amazing. So that was the first shock. The agenda tonight, we're going to go over just sort of the Loon Cam overview, a high level view of what's going on and so forth. And then we're going to get into a lot of what did we see in 2021 with Loon Cam 1. And then we'll wrap it up with what goes on behind the scenes, get a little technical, and go into some Q&A. I've got all the Loon Cam that's running. We've got all the tools that are running. So if anybody has anything they want to see, we can bring that up after the presentation's over. So as an overview, in New Hampshire and other northern states, a lot of people have a chance to hear and see loons, but a lot of people outside of the lakes region and other lakes in New Hampshire and just throughout the rest of the country and literally the world just don't know that much about loons. And LPC's mission is to raise awareness. They do believe that it's a sort of a indicator of the health of the environment, and so it's really a great thing that they're doing to get this out there to lots of people. It's operated since 2014. The first 2 years I wasn't involved, but I've been involved since then. Normally, over the past few years, we've had 2 Nest cams running. So we start in early May and usually end up around mid-July when the second nest hatches. This year we had 2 cams, but like I said earlier, one was loonless. And so one cam we did get 2 chicks out of, and the other cam, well, we didn't even get loons out of it. So that's that. The pair from last year seems to have given up the territory on Looncam 2. LPC does research and outreach and education, and this is part of that plan to get to lots of people. And from a research angle, it's especially good because the camera's running 24/7. There's this lively online chat community, and it's like a crowdsourced viewing. If something happens, if something weird goes on, somebody has probably seen it. There's never nobody watching. And so we've really rewritten some of the rules of how loons are supposed to act, and that has been really good for researchers. There's so much that's not known about the loons, and by looking at sort of this cycle, we get to learn a lot. The chat room is a special feature. Hundreds participate. We also record a lot of the special events and publish that on the LPC YouTube library. And there's a Looncam page on loon.org that we put news there and so forth and keep things up to date. So lots of going on during that May to mid-July period. This is a screenshot of the live or the Looncam page on the LPC's loon.org page. And there we keep news items about what's going on. The live cam is there, so if people don't want to go directly to YouTube, they can get it from this page. We have Biff's blog. Biff used to work for LPC, very knowledgeable about loons, and has a great writing style that sort of combines humor and insight together, and we all enjoy looking at that. He's also the LPC blogger on the chat room, and so usually shows up every morning and provides some insight of what's going on. Just lots of information on this site. So if you're looking for more information about either Looncam or just loons in general, that's the place to go. We use YouTube. We didn't do that the first couple of years. First 3 years was not YouTube, but we found it's just so easy to use. YouTube adapts to people's devices, their speed. So people that are on slow internet links, or people using cell phones, things like that, even to people using large TVs, YouTube adapts to that and provides the best picture possible. It has a 12-hour rewind, so people can go back up to 12 hours and review something that they've missed. The chat is part of the YouTube feature, and people put timestamps on the chat feed, and so that helps people use the rewind feature. So that works out real well. There's viewer statistics for LPC for those of us that are running the site, so we can see how many people are viewing it and so forth. I guess the best feature, it's free. We were looking around, it was $1,000 a month to work with some of the other streaming services, and YouTube said it's free. So I'm like, well, okay, well, let me think about this, and that was pretty easy. And then it just works. So it takes a lot of the there are some technical issues in running it, but in general, it's pretty easy to run. The community chat gives us that live interaction, and we have lots of regulars. I would say at least 12 to 20 people that they show up, and we see each other every day, say hi and so forth. And some are local, some are national. We have some folks, really various parts of the U.S. and then internationally, some regulars are coming in from. We've had some from Russia and from Sweden and from Poland and so forth. So we really are an international community, and it's a very a congenial crowd, and very, very seldom, sometimes we get bored and things drift off topic, but I would say in general, it's very helpful. It helps some of the new people coming in that can have questions. They can get answers from people that have been watching this cam for many years. Some of them watch it more than I do, which is hard to believe, but I think it happens. So then people make notes of timestamps of nest swaps, egg turns, notable things. The heron showed up, or hey, there was a good thunderstorm an hour ago at 15:34, and so forth. And then occasionally the crowd sort of rises up and demands fundraising from the other chatters. We don't push fundraising ourselves, but we have raised a good bit of money for the Loon Cam that way, and we do appreciate that. So what we see is the cycle of reproduction. We start a few weeks before the eggs are laid, and we see the whole cycle from the nest selection to departing the nest. And we see lots of challenges to a successful hatch. Some years we've seen more than others. Eggs are lost, predation attempts, sibling rivalry, territorial fights. And while LPC does not encourage anthropomorphic personalities, that's sort of putting sort of a human emotion into an animal. The non-scientists among us, I'm an engineer, I'm not a scientist, so me and the other chatters, we always are trying to figure out, well, what's that loon thinking? Why is it doing what it's doing? And we do see unexpected behaviors. Loons return to the nest after the chick once they've left. Sometimes they get really excited about something that they shouldn't be excited about, and other times they don't get excited about things they should. And so it's just fascinating to watch what's going on. I think this last cam, we had some just brand new behavior that was like, oh, that's really interesting. That chick is, or that loon is really talking to that chick and making it understand what it wants it to do. There can be drama. There can be tragic events. Luckily, it wasn't tragic this year, but nature takes its course, and sometimes it's tough to watch, but it's also educational. And in the end, we are often rewarded with loon chicks. We've been skunked a few times, but for the most part, we get out of 2 nests, we get usually at least 1, and sometimes 3 or 4 chicks. At the end of the day, it's what it's all about. We're increasing the population of loons in New Hampshire, and trying to get the rest of the world to understand what the best practices are to do that. So let's get into the 2021 season. Here we see John Cooley, he's a senior biologist at LPC, and here he's working on placing the nest. The nest is pulled from the shoreline, and it's positioned with 4 concrete blocks and ropes holding it in place. And then he also that same day installed the camera, and sure enough, the next morning, shortly after his place, the camera caught 2 loons taking off. Now this year we're trying some videos, so this is the first attempt at it. Well, hopefully it works. We're going to watch off in the distance. See, there's some loons taking off. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wasn't manning the camera at that particular time, and so didn't get to see, didn't get to zoom in on everything. But that's the great part about the camera just running. You catch stuff that you didn't expect. So now this is the day afterwards, and you can see there's not much nesting material left over from the previous year. Looks pretty paltry, actually, but a red-winged blackbird decided that this nest was a good perch, and perhaps maybe a good nest too. We'll talk about more of that later. This was sort of one of our drama moments for the year. And then the same day, again, we're 2 weeks before the egg is laid, a single loon showed up at the nest. And I guess here's my example of anthropomorphic behavior. I think the loon is crying because of the sad shape this nest is in. Artificial nests aren't easy to build up once they're in the water because the material isn't there. So this loon's just sort of saying, well, come on. I'll just let you listen for a second here. Yeah. It's like, come back another day. But by May 11th, some material had been added. And here you see me out at the nest adjusting the microphone and the infrared lights. We try to get everything done before the loons take up residence, because once they're there, you don't want to flush them. So whatever's going to work is going to work, and whatever's going to break is going to stay broken. And so we knew the nest, the loons hadn't settled in yet, and so we were out fixing some things. This is May 12th, and now we have the pair. I think this was the first time we saw the pair show up. So now they're starting to say, maybe this is a little bit better. And also in this picture, I think there's a little more nesting material added, but still not enough. Now this next chart is it was something pretty cool. We started at nighttime. One of the chatters noticed that there was a string of lights going off in the sky. The camera was catching the stars, but also catching the string of lights. And we realized it was from a Starlink, SpaceX's Starlink satellite cluster. So when they send the satellites up, there's like 100 in the rocket, and they are in this really tight cluster for maybe a month until they spread out across their orbit. And so this just was produced this video because it's such a cool juxtaposition of technology and nature. You got something going on that is, definitely not a loon. And at the same time, as you listen to this clip, there's a lot of loon calls in the background. This is a typical evening in New Hampshire. It's also a good example of how the camera can pick up at nighttime pretty well. This is 11 o'clock at night. You can see the infrared lights lighting up the nest, but at a 1 frame per second rate, it picked up a lot of the background too. Well, so now it's May 13th, and it's clear that the nest needs some more bedding. Caroline Hughes, who introduced me tonight, a biologist at LPC, and has many roles at there. And some of the newly arrived interns made a field trip with lots and lots of nesting material and got the nest ready for its job. So here's just a few seconds of them doing that.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that looks good. And we don't have to put it all the way out to here because that's just going to go right through. But
All right, now we've got a beautiful nest waiting for a loon, and sure enough, the following week they visited now and then, and here on the 20th of May, the loon is finally starting to check out the nest, stepping up in there and saying, is this a good place for an egg? And we're still a few days from the loon laying the egg, but we're getting close. The red-winged blackbird is also visiting the nest and actually spending more time than the loons there. Here the loon is visiting the nest. You can see the loon right here and the red-winged blackbird here. And so this is starting to become a confrontation. It's the talk of the chatter on the chat room and so forth. But by May 21st, it's clear the loon is ready to nest, and we're now 3 days away from the egg arriving. At 2 days away, the loons are hanging around the nest, and even they're hanging even more. This clip shows them hanging out together in front of the nest, and I published this one because they're just acting in such synchronicity. You can tell that they sort of know that there's a long 4-week incubation period ready to start. Just notice how once they get together, their beaks just work together. And of course, you can't make eggs without a little bit of mating, and that starts at least a week or so before the first egg arrives. At least is what we've seen with previous the cams. But this pair just wasn't seen doing it on the nest until May 24th, and so we have to assume that they were mating along the shore off camera. I'm going to show a quick clip here. This clip ends before it gets too graphic, but if you're interested in seeing the whole thing, it is on the LPC's YouTube library. Okay, I'll let your imagination run wild from there on. Now, the same day and just a few hours later, the red-winged blackbird decided that maybe it should have the nest, and so they ended up mating too. So here's a picture of a couple red-winged blackbirds doing it. Now I'll let this guy strut a while, because right at the end of this, he like flies right at the camera, and it's a pretty cool shot. All right, so now the pressure's on, and the loons won the race. So same day, even in the evening at 8:23, the loon decided it was time to lay an egg and make the nest there. So here we have about a minute of the loon in its final stages of laying the egg. Now you're not going to see the egg actually happen here, facing the wrong way, but it is happening at this point. And with that, the clock starts ticking. But you know, it's pretty typical for the loons to leave an egg sitting unoccupied until the second one appears. This gives the it doesn't activate the incubation of the first egg, so that when the two eggs start hatching, they hatch about the same time, and the chicks are about the same age. But that gave the red-winged blackbird one last opportunity to consider the nest in play. But in this scene, you're going to see it. The loons decided to make it very clear that it was the red-winged blackbirds could not have the nest. So the second egg arrived about 60 hours later, which is a long time. That is very unusual, at least from what we've seen before. And now the pair settled into an incubation routine. The eggs were rarely left uncovered, so the scene was pretty much the same. The loon sitting on the nest, occasionally turning the egg several times a day, swapping places. Sometimes the swap was quick. Often, especially with this pair, they'd go off for a swim together for a while. Maybe catching up on the news before the other one took over. So here's an example of a nest exchange. So 28 days, about lots of boring times, but occasionally we catch a good picture here and there. There was here's a example of the loon swimming fairly close to the camera, and so we could zoom in on it and get a really nice clear shot. Here's a goose, that Canadian goose that we quite frequently saw, and could watch it preen itself. And again, when all you're looking at is a loon sitting on an egg not doing much, or a goose, I guess some days you watch the goose. We had a turtle. This is at least one of at least two snapping turtles that made a frequent appearance on the rock. The rock became known as Alcatraz, that named that by the chatters. Snappers are a predator of loon chicks, but the loons weren't too worried while the eggs were still on the nest. So we saw one case where the second snapper came up and knocked the first snapper off, and sort of rolled into the water. It was sort of a funny day. But yeah, this snapper, anytime it was a good and sunny and warm, the snapper would get up on this rock and sun itself. So not too many exciting moments this year. Some years are more so than others, but in this case, the camera caught an otter snooping around the loon's nest, and then the loon noticed it too. This clip shows the loon flushing the nest, making sure that the otter is not going to be a threat. And at the end of the clip, the flushing is replayed in slow motion, because watching a loon flush a nest is quite it's interesting to watch. Flushing is dangerous, though. When the loon quickly gets off the nest, sometimes they're not too precise, and they have been known to kick eggs into the water. This nest is quite deep, and so it didn't happen here, but at least it's one of the reasons why people are encouraged not to go near a nesting loon, because they might flush it. But anyway, here's about a minute and a half of loons and otters having a discussion. There it is, right there. Unfortunately, this was at 6 in the morning, and I was getting coffee while this was happening, so I didn't catch the zoom back until it was sort of too late. There's the guy again right there. Yeah, told him. Okay, here we go in slow motion. Just an example of the night cam. It's great to be watching the loons at night, because they don't just sit there. They do turn the egg, and sometimes they get off the nest. It would be rare to see them swap nests at night, but by having the cam on all the time, we at least know if anything unusual has happened. Here's a beautiful shot one early morning, 5:18 in the morning, June 18th. You can see both loons here. There's one, there's the other. And this is just an example of they switching nest duty and taking a little break in between. This pair, they love that 5 o'clock in the morning stuff. So it was like poor Loon Cam Operator and many of the chatters had to be up awful early to catch the timestamp of when these guys changed. But in June, the sun starts coming up around 3:30. So, this is mid-morning, I guess, for them by the time 5:18 runs around. We also see a lot of what we call hangover look. So that when they're concerned about something, they tend to lower their head down, become lower profile and so forth. This particular loon did this an awful lot. We never could really figure out what was bothering it, but obviously something was. And then the sunsets. The sunsets were beautiful. This particular way we mounted the camera, we couldn't quite see the sun and the loon cam at the same nest at the same time. But you know, here you can see Alcatraz in the background. Here's some rocks where that goose was preening itself, and the sun sets just off to the left here. But that was just every night I tried to pull the cam back and just try to catch a little bit of that evening sun. So now we're a few days away from the hatch. And so the next shot is a picture of my office. It looks actually better on this picture than it does right now. I'm sitting in the same spot, but over here is the network map. It's showing me how much traffic I'm consuming. Here I'm about to publish a video. This is the YouTube. This is the chat right here. And over here I have the camera control. And then just some various other stuff in my water, of course. So just ready to go for hatch day. It can be a long day sometimes. So this is one of the first shots of the new chick. This would be June 21st at 5:09 in the morning. I think I was up at 2 that morning because you never know when they're going to come out. And can you see it peeking out behind the wing? Here it is right here. And because the loon is facing us backwards, it probably did show itself out the front first, but here it's you know, crawling out the back of the wing. This one probably hatched shortly after midnight, but then it takes a few hours before it gets active. But here we see it. And then here the loon got off the nest and it's looking back at the egg that had been holding the chick before. There's another picture of the loon just sort of poking out. And it's starting to get itself a little bit more energetic. And then finally it's in the water. So what we saw it first emerge at 5 something in the morning. Here it is about 9:45, 10 of 10, and it's swimming. And that's pretty typical. They're usually in the water 4 or 5 hours afterwards. In this picture, the loon is starting to raise its wing, hoping that the chick learns to crawl in there and learn to get on its back. I don't think this one ever did, as far as we could see. And just a couple pictures of that area. Now here's the wings way up, and the chick is up in there. But this particular chick was more into biting the wing than it was into getting on the back. A very energetic chick, very more than most. And then finally, here we are at 1:30 in the afternoon. They're out. They're off the nest. They're in the breeding or the feeding area. And this chick did not come back the rest of that day. In fact, it didn't come back that night until the next morning. So that's the father with the chick number 1. Chick number 2 is still sitting in an egg under the mother here. And now this is 8 o'clock at night, and we haven't seen chick 1 or the father like since 1 o'clock that afternoon. So she goes into sort of a wailing frenzy. I picked up, here's like 3 of them. So that's just a short clip. That went on for about 15 minutes, and the father never came back. But here we go. Here is about 3 a.m. Chick number 2 shows up behind the wing. And so even though right here's the chick, even though the eggs were 60 hours apart, the chicks hatched less than 24 hours apart. So that was you know, interesting, you know, from a researcher standpoint, that's quite interesting. The second chick appeared weaker than the first, but that's understandable. You know, it incubated, you know, many days less than the first one. So that's sort of to be understood. Just here are a couple more pictures of one picture of the chick leaning against the mother trying to get it to come onto the wing. But it was fairly, you could tell it was weak. Didn't show the energy that we see with a lot of the other newly hatched chicks. And now the father showed up about 5:30 and the mother got off the nest. And this was our first view of full view of the chick just sitting there by itself. And they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do now? So now we're at about 5:37. Here we are at 6:07, and over here you can see the one chick, and then here's the other chick. So the father had brought the other chick back, and both are sitting on the nest now, and they're trying to figure out what's next, just to gain some strength. So 6:07, now we're at 6:47, and chick number one has been bouncing in and out of the water, gets out of the water and goes back on the nest and so forth. Seems to be, he's a day old, seems to be in fine shape. I think this is chick number one again. And then here we see both chick number one and chick number two sitting by the mother. Again, chick number one showing its sort of weakness, just sort of, hugging the mother a lot more than eating the nest, which it often does, or jumping in the water and things like that. So this is 8:05. At 8:23, the parents decided, hey, it's time to go. It's been 5 hours since the chick first showed itself. And what we have seen, I mean, literally in every loon cam we've had, when there's chicks are hatched and they're leaving the nest, the loons do a celebration. So this is a great example of we're leaving town. Look at chick number two. Just not with the program. But chick two decided to stay back. This is sort of unusual. So we were all concerned, but the mother decided to come back and see what was going on. Now, something that I haven't had answered, and I mean, I haven't even asked, and maybe Caroline can comment on this when we're done, but look at the lines on that loon. It just looks like it's very stressed at the moment. And so it was very obvious that it didn't look like a standard loon, all the lines and everything, but it decided that it better get back on and incubate that, or at least get that chick a little bit better, in better health before, to see if it would thrive. I mean, in some cases, the chick is not going to thrive, and there was definitely a chance, and there were some people that were sort of assuming that chick was toast, that it was just not going to make it. But the loon gets on, and here we are a couple hours later. The loon is getting tired because it's ready to go, and it's sort of yawning and so forth. That's at 10:03, but by 1:09, so now we're 5 hours after the so-called first leaving. It is time to go. So we're going to see a little clip here. It's about almost 3 minutes long, so a fairly long clip. But watch at the beginning, the loon sort of kicks the chick off the nest, and not completely, but enough that it's close to the water. And then as the loon leaves, the chick does decide to follow. So let's watch this. calling for the father at this point, trying to say, hey, we're coming. See, it can swim. It's a loon. Okay. And just a little more. This is 14 seconds of final swimming off into the sunset. Eventually, they met up with the adult male and chick number one. The camera followed the four for an hour or so. They finally disappeared into a cove, and that's the last we've seen of them on the camera. Unfortunately, the local residents reported a commotion a few nights later, and the next morning, one of the chicks was gone. We don't know which one it is, but as of last report, literally today, the other one is still thriving. And so we hope that it will continue to grow and thrive and then leave the pond and make more loons in 3 or 4 years. So the next day, they're gone. They're not coming back to the nest. And so here we see Caroline and one of the interns, Kaylee, doing a 20-minute live broadcast where they examined the nest and collected eggshells and described what they were doing. This video is available on the LPC YouTube channel if you'd like to watch it. And then after the broadcast was finished, we disconnected the camera, removed it, cleaned up the site, and went home. See you next year. So now we come on to Loon Cam 2. And Loon Cam 2 has been in operation. The nest here, or the site, has been monitored by LPC since 1987. And in 1992, they started putting artificial nests in there because they just weren't being successful. They were being predated too often. And so after 4 years of successful nesting here, the pair that has been there for the last 4 years decided not to show up. Instead, all spring, we saw 5 loons hanging around, like there was a territorial dispute going on. And we saw one of the pairs from last year about 3 miles away without a mate. So we don't know what happened, but we do know that they didn't come back here. And as recently as yesterday, we saw 2 loons that approached the nest and got sort of close to it. But we also saw 4 loons hanging out in seemingly perfect harmony. So, which would have been unusual if there was a territorial dispute going on for people that wanted, or loons that wanted to nest. So we assume that they're not going to. We're going to be taking the Loon Cam down tomorrow. And that's it. We got skunked this year on Loon Cam 2, but we will hopefully will establish that again next year. Here's the nest itself. It's a beautiful nest. It's one of the newer designs. It has multiple layers of fabric over the top and a lower ceiling height to discourage avian attacks. There are owls and eagles in the area. So, it's a real danger. And a nest like this is going to help protect them from that kind of problem. The nest itself, nest material is very lush. There's small plants mixed in the mix, and the material is left in place over the winter so it can establish itself as its own ecosystem. The material is sourced locally, from pond material right there, and that helps prevent the introduction of invasive species. It also helps make the loons sort of feel at home because it's the material right from that area. Here's another one of the LPC interns putting some ropes around the nest to protect the camera and the underwater cables from fishermen going by. The loons don't have any trouble getting under the ropes. We've watched them, and it's just not an issue for them. But as long as the camera's running, we might as well capture some wild creatures. And here's a heron that we see quite often in the area. Here's a nice little bird, and I'm sure that somebody on the chat knows what kind of bird that is. I'm sorry, I don't. Here's the wood duck. A lot of wood ducks in the area. Here's another picture of the heron stalking along the edge. We enjoy watching it. It'll spend, it seems like an hour just step by step going through the shallow water and occasionally biting down into the water. And we've seen a large fish going down its neck, sort of like a rat through a snake or whatever. So it's just fun to watch. And what are you going to do? There's no loons. And sunsets. We love sunsets, and without loons to worry about, we've been able to watch the sunset quite nicely. So anyway, that's Loon Cam 2 for you. No good stories this year. Got a few oldies but goodies. These are just pictures from previous years. Here's a loon caught when the sun was just right, where you can see sort of down its mouth and look at some of the structures. There's some barbs in there that prevent the fish from getting out once they swallow it or once they get it in the mouth. Another picture of a loon on a very calm day. You can see the identification band on its left leg there. The ever-present wood ducks. Here's a great picture of a blue heron. Here's a picture from a couple years ago with the blue heron sitting on top of the loon nest. And this is why isn't it concerned? But it just doesn't seem to be concerned at all. I think this was from back in 2018. Here's sort of a scary one. This is the loon covered with black flies. And in this particular year, the black flies were so bad that the loons really couldn't stay on the nest very long. They'd be on for a few seconds sometimes and then get off. So the eggs did not get a very good incubation, and that year neither egg hatched. They incubated the whole 28 days, and they even stayed on a few extra weeks, but nothing happened. So a very sad year. And then we often see an extra loon show up and to see if the territory is up for grabs, but so far the answer has been no. And then finally, again, another one of the sort of sad pictures. This is a crushed egg. So this was an egg that from that period where the eggs over incubated, and after a period of time, they just got soft and crushed. Here's Mr. Turtle. This is the big snapper turtle that on the old Loon Cam 1. He would sit on the nest before the loons took residence, and I guess sort of helped along by squashing some of the water out of it. But once the loons took over, they did not like the turtle stopping by. And here's a great example of the loons talking to the turtle saying, you better get out of here. Another picture of a loon flushing the nest. This is an example of the old, actually this was Loon Cam 2 from a couple years ago. And a kayak got close by, and the loon flushed. And again, the eggs were not damaged, but the nest was a lot less lushly filled up that year. And so the eggs could have fallen off. So it's just another reminder, don't get near a loon nest because you might flush it. This was from, I guess, 2, maybe 3 years ago. It was a very freaky May snowstorm. I think it was May 9th, and there was enough snow to say, hey, it snowed. And an eagle, over here's an eagle visiting a tuft of solid ground, and here's the loon over here where it had chosen to nest. And this was a harbinger of what was to come. The eagle was hanging out over there more and more, ended up attacking the egg, but didn't get it. And then shortly after that, it came back within hours of the hatch and took the chick. And that was another year of no chicks because one egg had gotten lost in the softness of the nest, and the other one was taken by the eagle. So it was a bad year. When the eggs are about to hatch, one of the common sports of the chatters is to find the pip. The pip is the first indication that an egg is about to hatch. And here we have a couple examples of one. This little white spot on the end of the egg is one. It's funny. I'm probably as bad as anybody at seeing pips that aren't there. And this year was no exception. We didn't get a good picture of a pip this year, but we did get a couple of calls for pips that actually weren't. So it's sort of funny. Keeps us happy, keeps us something to do. Here's another example of a pip, and you can see the shell is really opening up here. It always opens up at the big end of the egg, and so that's one of the ways we know whether it's a true pip or not. And then some pictures of the loons with their chicks. Here's a couple of siblings that are having a fight on the back of a loon. And probably one of my favorite pictures, but it's also sad in a way, is two loons with their two chicks heading off into the sunset for the last time, meaning that the Loon Cam is about to shut down. And so with that, we're going to end what happened this year and get into the more technical side of the discussion, which is the camera, what goes on behind the scenes. So how does it work? Well, it's been refined a lot over the last few years. The basic design is a pan, tilt, zoom camera or PTZ camera that streams over YouTube over a high-speed internet connection. And we also archive stream to an archive, and we store periodic snapshots. The night viewing is aided by an infrared spotlight, and there's a remote power switch to toggle the infrared lights or the camera if we need it. And we also deploy an internet connected weather station. Loon 2 is the same, except it's off grid. And so we run the camera off of batteries. We have solar panels, and we use an inverter to create the DC to AC and have a Wi-Fi like radio link to the mainland. So it's an off-grid solution, which is great because we know now we can operate a Loon Cam as much as a mile away from a mainland where we can get internet connection if we have to. We put the post into the ground. Here's John Cooley, our resident tree monkey, that is pounding the stake into the ground, and then we shore it up from there. We put the nest between 20 and 30 feet away from the camera. This is Looncam 1 of this year. And then here is a sort of a block diagram of what's going on. This is the box we used this year. The camera itself was about out here, and the equipment, the electronic equipment was here. And then here's the camera. The camera gets a covering of camouflage. Here's this was my tabletop, my dining room table, the day that we were about to go out to install the camera. This board here holds the camera. The Ethernet connector here goes here. The audio cable goes in here, and this board just attaches to the post that John puts up. And then we've got the equipment box and the tools box. That's what the equipment box looks like. And I know it looks messy, but it works. I have thought every year, I swear to myself, I'm going to make that less messy in there, but it's just what it is. We spool the cable up to deploy it. Made it really easy this is 250 foot of cable out to the camera. One is for the camera, one is for the infrared. Unfortunately, when we took the camera down, we pulled both cables in together, and it's just 500 feet of rat's nest right now sitting in my basement waiting for that perfect time to untangle, hopefully by next year. The camera itself is it's about a $2,000 camera by the time you get all the equipment. It's fairly expensive, but it does what we need to do. It goes in any direction up to a level. We can't go up in the sky, but we can go up to level. It has 30x optical zoom. It can go high definition, so 1080p. It has audio. We can do real-time control, and I can control it from either my my PC or my phone. So it works very well that way. The microphone is right here. We put the microphone in the nest itself and then run the cable over to the camera. And as you could tell from those videos I showed tonight, the microphone's great. The requirement that we have is that it picks up the bird noise well, but does not pick up human voices. You know, we need to keep privacy for the humans, but the birds don't seem to care. So that's the ultimate mic for us. We use the Cam Streamer software. This installs in the camera, and it converts the protocol that the camera normally uses into the YouTube protocol. It can also go, as you can see here, into Facebook or Twitch or any of the a variety of streaming services. The infrared light gives us that nice nighttime light up so we can see what's going on. We have a weather station that has been used in the past to correlate temperature with when the loons start panting. We have a power switch, which allows me to turn things on and off without having to go on site if something's starting to fail. And I can schedule that. So like right now, I use it to turn off both the camera, turn off the camera at night on Looncam 2 because there's no loons there. So I'm saving the battery power. The router is sort of a special router. It's Ubiquiti Edge Router X. It firewalls us from the internet, gives it the remote access. What I like about it is it gives me the real-time information about what's going on the circuit. So if there's any sort of slowdown, I can figure out what it's about. So yeah, bandwidth's always a problem. You never have enough. And we have the YouTube and the archive and the operator and the time-lapse streams. And the most that we can get is 35 megabits per second. The camera's supposed to be able to do 50. And so when there's a lot of motion, you know, like a rainstorm or a windstorm with a lot of whitecaps and so forth, then the camera needs to have much more bandwidth. And if we don't have it, then the viewers see a degraded picture. You might see jitter. You might just see it stop, you know, the circle going around in YouTube. And so this year we tried a load balancing experiment. Last year we had a little fundraiser where people said, okay, we'll contribute to trying a second circuit. So that's what we did. We bought 2 circuits, and one circuit was for YouTube, one circuit was for Angel Cam, and it sort of worked, but we've had a couple of problems. The cable company didn't allow inbound access to both circuits because I guess they don't want us to route data through it. The combined throughput appeared to be limited to 35 meg through the carrier, which was weird. But also the camera itself may have been a limitation. When we were doing both the YouTube, which is a conversion, and the native protocol, the camera just didn't have the processing power. So if we ever need to replace the cameras, and you know they're already unsupported, and so at some point we probably will, the newer cameras have a lot more processing power, and we may try this experiment again. But yeah, it didn't work. This is the example of the solar stuff. Over here is the solar panels themselves, you know, pointed at 21 degrees of the sky. This yellow box has the batteries and the inverter and a variety of meters so we can tell what's going on. This over here is the camouflaged antenna. This is the antenna itself down here in the right corner, lower right corner, that communicates across the pond. And here's an example of, you know, the equipment's just really put out in the woods in a box. We run about 300 feet of extension cord from the solar panels to the equipment box because the sun is on the south side of the island, but the nest is on the north side of the island. And so, yeah, 300 feet of extension cord, which is, it works. The radio is pretty cool. It's called Light Beam. It can go up to 400 megabits per second or 3 miles, probably not both at the same time. This is a picture from today's shot. You know, it's showing that we're 1,400 feet away, and we have a capacity of 131 megabits per second, but we're only using about 4 at the moment. So what I thought yesterday was cool is it was raining really, really hard, and the antenna automatically raised the power, so we never lost any capacity during the rainstorm. So it's you know, it's $60 each end, so for 120 bucks, it's a really, really nice piece of equipment. The solar panel stuff, I mean, it's pretty standard solar stuff. There's a controller, there's an inverter, there's a bunch of deep cycle batteries, which were very expensive, but well worth it. And we can get a couple days out of it. This is a solar budget graph. We did a lot of work with spreadsheets and so forth to figure out that the battery has about 1,250 watt hours capacity. The solar generates 150 on a cloudy day and about a kilowatt on a good day, a sunny day. We use about 750 watt hours a day. So that gives us about a 3-day reserve. Last year we did run out and the camera was offline for a few hours overnight until the sun came up. And then this year I just turn off the camera at night, so I didn't have to use it. It's about 30 watts, a constant 35 watts of power. So it was an interesting exercise to get this running. We have a YouTube library. There's over 100 video demands. Many of the ones that I showed tonight are there. We pull this from our archive and then edit it up with a Movavi video editor, upload to YouTube. And if it's a good relevant video, I check the box that subscribers are notified. Otherwise, we just sort of post it. And sometimes I notify the chatters that a new video is uploaded. The archive itself gives us 30 days of like DVR. It does use the second camera stream and uses bandwidth, so it's sort of nasty on that standpoint, but we can make video clips up to 3 hours long. We can share the clips if I don't want to edit and post it to YouTube. So this year, a couple times, I would just send somebody a link to the actual video themselves. It's completely unedited, but if you just want to watch something, it's a good way to do it. And the archive can be saved for years. We have archive pictures from years and years ago. And so, if somebody's working on their master's or doctoral and need raw material for their thesis, we've got a lot of Loon examples. We get good streaming reports from YouTube. This graph in the lower left shows us the time of day that people most watch. We can see real-time activity. We can see how many times people are chatting. We can see which countries are most popular. So like here, 65% are from the US, 7% from Canada, and then it goes down from there. We can see that New Hampshire is the most prevalent viewing state, which we would hope so, because we're from New Hampshire. We see that people watch on average 17 minutes, but for New Hampshire, they average watch 33 minutes and so forth. So folks in Minnesota watch 27 minutes and so forth. So we get just an idea of what's going on. We can tell that, it's about 70-30 of women over men watch it. And we can see that people over 65 tend to be the most frequent watchers. And so, or year over year, if we want to say, hey, let's see if we can get more people that are 35 to 44 interested and so forth. It gives us some information about how we're doing. The time lapse sends a high quality snapshot every, from minute to 5 minutes, depending on what's going on, transmitted to a remote file server. It has a timestamp on it, so we can tell what time it is. It just makes it easy to find when something happens. It's a lot easier than looking through a lot of video clips. I use GoPro Studio to put them into movies if I want to. We're thinking maybe someday in the future, artificial intelligence video processing might be able to tell us how often loons change their nest, how often they turn the eggs and so forth, if it can identify that. We've got every Loon Cam provides gigabits of data, and we have archived it all. So, we have it available. Here's a little clip that I made of from dusk to dawn of, this was like 2 days before the hatch. And it just shows the loon, doing what loons do overnight. And there we go. There's the morning. So lessons learned. High quality is never enough. You got to keep trying, keep getting better. We placed the camera on the front side, we thought, but turned out we saw a lot of loon butt this year. We were on the back side. We do like to put the camera on the north side or the south side of a nest, so we don't get a lot of solar glare. but somehow we got to figure out how to predict which way the loon's going to be looking. We need to have the camera a little bit higher. We strive for head height. I think we got back height this year, so we couldn't really see in the nest too well. You couldn't see the eggs as well as normal. So we got to make sure we do that better. Chatters were great this year at answering questions for people that were just showing up. And that, the LPC folks are just so busy, taking care of the 100+ nests in New Hampshire that they don't have time to always be online. And so we did have a lot of great regulars that answered a lot of good questions in a very, professional tone. So that we do appreciate that. That worked out well. We did learn the camera's getting old, has a performance limits. It's $2,000 to replace it, so it won't happen next year. But we have to start thinking about when that happens. I personally, I got to make my video clips a little more frequently because as I went to put this presentation together, I realized that there were a lot of events that I wish I had made a movie of, but I just hadn't done it. And try to simplify the installation, make it faster to install. Like the solar array took us 4 days to get that thing up and running, and then there were no loons. So that was like, can we make that easier? Can we make it more reliable? Those are our goals there. All right, so that's it. With that, I will entertain any questions. Let's bring the Loon Cam back online here while the questions occur. It looks like it's raining a little bit. I can, Carolyn, you can chime in if you want.
Yeah, great. So we do have one question in the chat already, and if folks have other questions, please do put them in there. So this question is, Bill, do you make the decisions as to which equipment to purchase for all of the equipment that you showed? And then there's also a comment, which is, it sounds like a lot of work for you.
Well, yeah, yes and yes. I mean, I run I run a lot of things by LPC. Either Caroline helps a lot, John helps a lot, and if it's a lot of money, Harry helps a lot. So but this year, we had to buy a 250-foot cable. We had to buy 2 of them, and I didn't know which one to buy, so I bought 2 different brands. And so what I'm going to do is evaluate which one I like better. So yeah, things like that. Things like the power switch, which really saved a lot of trips. I chose that. I guess I did choose the camera. I mean, when I started, there was another camera that had been used, and it wasn't capable of doing YouTube, so we had to switch that. So I'd say, yeah, I probably do make most of the technical equipment decisions. LPC makes the decision about which nest we're going to do and when we're going to start it. So it's sort of a joint effort, and it works very well. I'm retired. I'm an old IT guy. I like networking. I like photography. So it is something to do. By the middle of July, yeah, it gets a little old. But I think we figured out how to make it on autopilot. The fact that the chatters help with a lot of stuff. The fact that here at Looncam 2, we've had 2 or 3 people. I gave them an account, and they were able to play with the camera and get a little bit used to it. And so, we maybe in the future can offload some of that. It would be great to have other people take some of the raw material and make videos out of it, because I do that over coffee in the morning sometimes. So it's not that terrible, but yeah. And I feel like I have a job between May and middle of July. But it's a privilege, right? I mean, I get to run this great equipment that I didn't have to pay for, and I get to watch loons a lot, and so yeah, I enjoy it at this moment, at this time.
This next one is a comment more than a question. She says, I stumbled across the Loon Cam by accident and was immediately hooked. I learned more about loons than I'd ever known. Kudos to you. And I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning, which is that so much of the success and the quality of the Loon Cam is thanks to Bill and the dozens, hundreds of hours that he puts in a given season. And there are several comments to that same effect, Bill, that you did an amazing job this year. Another question is, did you use any presets this year for the views, or was it mostly just you moving it around?
Well, I didn't use the programmed presets, which you can do. But like, for instance, you know, right now I'm sharing the camera screen, and I can down here, I have these presets for Loon Cam too. So if I want to look at, here's home. So after an hour, it automatically goes back to home. So that would be the picture that we use all the time. And that's great for the time lapse, because the time lapse is always watching the nest. So when I get up in the morning, I'll look at all the pictures from the previous night, and the morning up to that point to see, hey, have any loons showed up? If I want to look at the mountains just because it's a nice shot, I can click on that. If I want to look at the narrows, there's this narrows where we've seen loons a lot. They tend to go around that far corner there to the right, and so you know that's a great shot to be watching for loons. Let's see what else is cool here. I guess Northwest is just like, you know, the mountains. So watching storms coming and so forth. So yeah, but on Loon Cam 1, I had a lot more presets because you know, we actually had loons. So there was, I make them up as I go that season. So I clear it all in the beginning of the season. And then as they're needed, I make the presets. And then I would say probably more than half the time I'm doing that. But the way this works, I can click on any spot on the camera and it jumps right to that spot at the center. I can click the zoom down here and it zooms in on something. I can zoom back out again. And then if I click on the middle and bring that arrow up and around, I can make the camera go all anywhere I want to. And so that's a good way of following a loon. If you know, if the chick is out there swimming on the back of a loon, I want to be able to follow it. And so I use this little control here to do that. Okay.
Great. So that looks like the end of the questions in the chat. Again, there are a lot more comments thanking you for all of your work on the camera and for your presentation tonight, which was excellent. So thank you. Before we end things, I do just want to remind folks that this is the first in our Summer Nature Talk series. So we will be having presentations every Thursday at 7 p.m. on our YouTube channel from now through the end of August. So if you enjoyed this one, please do come back for future talks, and hopefully we'll see you then. And again, thank you, Phil, for sharing all of this information with us tonight and for all of the work that you did on the Loon Cam.
See everybody next year.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.